The government in Ekurhuleni is vulnerable and unstable. This is because the DA-led coalition and its 5 political partners have less than the required numbers to help shield the metro from votes of no confidence. Yesterday, ActionSA surprised its partners by pulling out of the coalition agreement without warning. Let's get reaction now on this, and we're joined by Chairperson of the Coalition Technical Committee in Gauteng, and he also is a member of Parliament from the Freedom Front Plus. That's Dr. Corné Mulder, who talks to us from Cape Town. Dr. Mulder, thank you very much for your time. Were you surprised by the actions taken by ActionSA yesterday?
Yes, I think we were a bit surprised. We did not expect that. The fact of the matter is that, as you correctly point out, the government in Ekurhuleni has been a minority government since day one, which makes it very difficult being a minority government. We understand that. The moment when the ANC and the EFF could agree on something, they could bring a motion of no confidence or elect a mayor between themselves. They were able to bring a motion of no confidence, but they couldn't agree to elect a new mayor. So we continue as a minority government. We were surprised because I think on Saturday I had some interaction with ActionSA, and they did indicate that they were not going to take up seats in the executive, the mayoral committee, in the new government that we have formed after Tanya Campbell was elected again as the executive mayor. So we took note of that. But that is the decision they could take. And that doesn't mean that they then withdrew from the coalition. For example, up to this point, the Freedom Front Plus has been part and parcel of that coalition agreement, although we did not take up any positions in the executive. So that in itself did not mean a withdrawal. But then yesterday they did have a press conference in which they formally then announced that they are withdrawing from that coalition government in Ekurhuleni.
Do you agree with their reasoning?
No, I don't. I think it's, from my perspective, I think there are other methods to do this. If one feels unhappy about certain things in terms of the coalition agreement, there are all kinds of structures and processes that can be followed to bring those things to the attention of the Coalition Technical Committee, to bring those things to the attention of the Coalition Oversight Group, and it can be dealt with in that fashion. But be that as it may, ActionSA decided now to withdraw from the coalition as such and to take up the role as an opposition party in Ekurhuleni. That is their right. They, however, did indicate that they will continue to form a voting bloc with the multi-party minority coalition government, and they will assist in defeating motions of no confidence and to protect our government. So we welcome that. But they see for themselves a different role in Ekurhuleni, and they are entitled to play that role.
Dr. Mulder, the ActionSA, before making or taking this drastic step, they voiced their concerns publicly that that government will remain vulnerable as long as the Democratic Alliance, which is the leader of this coalition agreement, refuses to form some kind of a formal agreement outside of making informal agreements with a party like the EFF. And this for them was to make sure that these motions of no confidence that come every now and again, they are rooted out or stamped out before they can even succeed. Is that something that you're willing to consider as a coalition partner?
No, we are not. The fact of the matter is, and we just rectify that one thing, it is correct that the Democratic Alliance is the biggest party in the coalition. They are also the biggest party in the city of Johannesburg, Corné, as well. But in terms of the coalition agreement signed in all these metros, no specific party leads the coalition. All the other coalition partners feel very strongly about that. And Section 1.1 of the coalition agreement clearly states that no party is entitled to claim that they lead the coalition. I know it may be a technical point, but it's quite important. So we are not a DA-led coalition. The fact of the matter is, in terms of the numbers of the result of November 2021 in Ekurhuleni, for instance, it's quite clear that you will form a minority government unless you form a government with the ANC, which we do not contemplate, or unless you bring the EFF into some kind of arrangement. Now, there's been discussions about that, but I can assure you that the Freedom Front Plus, the Democratic Alliance, and the other parties, ACDP, the IFP, have all expressed themselves that they are not in favor of such an agreement. So if one says you need to reach out to other political parties to ensure a majority, it's either you've got to reach out to the ANC, and ActionSA is quite clear that they don't want to do that, And then the only logical conclusion would be that they want us to reach out to the EFF. Now, political parties have their own positions on this, and they've said, no, they're not going to do that. They understand, and we welcomed the support from the EFF when they voted with us in the last election of a mayor. But there's no formal reaching out or any formal agreement, and the ActionSA may have a different approach, but that is not the approach of the multi-party coalition.
Let me tease out this reasoning from you a little bit more. So, voters will understand why the ANC needs to be kept out of government. Some people will say it's because of the multiple failures over the years that they have been in government. That's one position. The other, with the EFF, what seems to be problematic with forming some kind of an agreement with a party like the EFF?
Well, I think the EFF's track record speaks for itself. And if you look at their policy positions and the way that they interact in the political sphere, I think that parties have taken a decision that they don't want to be in any coalition agreement with the EFF, and that's where it stops. Yes, the ANC's got a track record, and the whole idea was, in this specific instance, that Ekurhuleni would be given to the EFF to govern, that the EFF was going to become the mayor, executive mayor. Even the ANC didn't want to go that route. So the parties in the coalition government says, no, we're not going to do that. You have to look also, if you really want to build a stable coalition government in anywhere, you need to start off with common values to a large extent, certain agreed about principles in terms of how you're going to do these things. And if you look at the policy positions of the EFF, I don't think we are on the same ground.
You've also, in your commentary around the stability of these coalition governments, you have said, and I think I'm quoting you correctly, that this is a moment for the Democratic Alliance to introspect. What do you mean by that? What is it that they need to reflect on?
Well, what happened was we recently were privileged to bring a visit. We were invited to visit Denmark, and we had a look at what their coalition arrangements would be like, and it just once again emphasized the following. If you, in election, as a single party, don't have sufficient votes to govern alone. Now, if you look at the question Ekurhuleni's got 224 councillors. So unless you as a party on your own have 113 members, you will be forced to form a coalition with others, or you will be just in opposition. That is your choice. And the point I've made in that regard, and it's not only for the Democratic Alliance, it goes for any party, it goes for the ANC as well, where they govern. The lesson we've learned is that the largest party, let's say, for example, in Ekurhuleni, where the Democratic Alliance has got 65 seats, but 65 seats is not enough to take you to 113. So the point I've made is that the larger party needs to be the humblest of the lot. Why? Because you've got the most to lose. You've got your majority, but it's not a clear majority. You need other parties to govern. And the emphasis and the challenge is to the larger party to accommodate the aspirations and the members of these other parties participating in the coalition. Because if you can't do that, combined, you will not be able to get the majority and to govern. And that's why I've said that. And there's a history. You remember that we've had some discussions with the City of Johannesburg at some stage where there was an election for the speaker, etc. The principle remains the same. The largest party needs to be the humblest of all, because without the support of others, their larger numbers mean in effect nothing.
When you say they have a lot to lose, that larger party, do you think that the Democratic Alliance leadership at national level, I'm being specific here, national level, they understand this?
I think they do understand this. Yes, I do think so at this stage, because one must remember, and specifically, there was a time when some of the larger parties were able to garner a majority on their own. That was the position with the ANC at some stage. That was the position, let's say, of the Democratic Alliance. But as politics evolve in South Africa and because of our proportional system, that position is now changing. So then you go into coalitions, and then you could have one of two approaches, and that goes for every party. You can either say, I don't have enough votes, I want to govern by myself. So what do? I need to co-opt some other parties to get their votes so that I can govern by myself as if I had a majority from the beginning. That's one approach. That approach will always fail because parties don't want to be co-opted and they were not going to be co-opted. The second approach is to say, okay, fine, I've got to change my strategy and understand what's going on. And if I want to have an influence as the larger party and form the bulk of a coalition government, then I need to really understand coalitions and reach out to other parties. And I believe that as this process went along, I also think that the leadership of the Democratic Alliance on national level understands that, and they are trying to accommodate that. And it's not always easy. Sometimes in parties, some people would say, why can't we just do it alone? No, you've got to understand how coalitions work, and you have to get the cooperation of other parties, and because of that, you need to be humble from time to time.
Yeah, let's wind this down, Dr. Mulder. If the situation is as is right now when it comes to these coalition governments, come 2024, if the ANC is brought under 50%, there already has been a survey conducted by a grouping called the Rivonia Circle. If indeed that becomes reality, are you at all concerned about the state of governance in South Africa if coalitions are a thing of the future?
Absolutely, I am. The problem is this. I think we don't have a long history and respect for how coalitions are supposed to work, and we are working on that. And I think we are all learning lessons at the speed of light at the moment. I am almost certain that the ANC will go down below 50% in 2024, and then we will have to form coalitions. And my prediction is the same will happen in some of the provinces. It will happen in Gauteng, it will most likely happen in the Western Cape, it will most likely happen in KZN. Coalition governments will need to be formed. And then I am concerned in terms of governance in South Africa because we need to understand the broader picture, and we will have to take responsible decisions in the best interest, because in the end, but that's the important thing, these coalitions are not about politicians. They are not about positions. They are about service delivery on local level or good governance on national and provincial level, because it's about the electorate and the citizens out there. And my appeal would be that the citizens, when they vote for political parties that they think will be responsible to form coalitions that can be stable and bring good governance in the interest of South Africa.
I have to ask you this last one.
Sure.
The party that everybody seems to be allergic to in forming any agreement, the EFF, their leader was in studio here on this show last week, and they are saying the voters must in part take responsibility for where we are, because if they had simply chosen a party that they feel can govern, then they should have made that decision at the ballot. And so the question for you is, do you share that view that voters must make it clear as to who needs to govern, and that party must be given the majority to govern?
That's not going to happen, and I don't think it's a very good strategy to blame the electorate. The electorate remembers those things if politicians start to blame them. No, it's not the fault of the electorate. We must realize that we've got a very diverse society in South Africa. We don't have a situation with one or two political parties. Because of the proportional system and because of our diversity, we've got 14 parties in Parliament. And it's the right of the electorate out there to express themselves and to vote for the party of their choice. And they will continue doing so. My appeal is that they look at the policies of the parties and that they don't vote for parties with policies that will destroy this country.
Dr. Corné Mulder, thank you very much for your time. Member of Parliament belonging to the Freedom Front Plus, but he also is chairperson of the Coalition Technical Committee in the Gauteng Metro.